It was wintertime in New York City. I was a reclusive artist, and I came home one day to an intriguing voicemail. The Russian voice said, "Natasha, you must be prepared to meet your team of operatives at midnight tonight at the Brooklyn Bridge. I will send you precise meeting coordinates in encrypted code." That was my father. For 2 years, we'd been playing an elaborate game pretending to be Russian secret agents. We were always trying to one-up each other in clever spy talk. As you heard, my alias was Natasha. I imagined myself with long black hair and high black boots. Very dangerous. Meet Boris. Of course, when I visited back home, we acted like normal people. And as I walked out the door, Dad transformed. "Natasha, be very careful when you start your car." "But father, you should know better. I have a team of agents outside surveying the house. You have nothing to fear." Natasha was not just dangerous. She was an agent who'd frequently saved the world from impending doom. But then came the day the laughter stopped. I was hit by a car, 60 miles per hour, trapped inside, consumed by fire, and nearly burned to death. My vinyl seat was on fire, melting onto my back. It burned down to the bone on part of my shoulder. I was conscious the entire time as I was being skinned alive. The police sent their report to homicide. I assumed they thought I was going to die. My family never left my side for weeks in the hospital. Their compassion was endless. My sister later held my hand and said, "Allison, you were so bloody and swollen, we couldn't recognize you." Doctors said 50% of my body had second and third degree burns. I was in such shocking, relentless pain, I couldn't sleep more than a few minutes at a time. It wasn't about how am I going to get through the next day or how am I going to get through the next hour. I was literally saying, how am I going to get through the next second? I felt deeply betrayed by life. My face was so swollen I couldn't open my eyes. One morning I heard the shuffling of feet and then a voice. "Natasha, it appears that the enemy has made yet another failed attempt to neutralize you." For the first time in weeks, I smiled. In an instant, I went from feeling devastated to feeling powerful. I was thrust into my character of Natasha, feeling as if I just saved the world. I actually felt proud laying there all bloody and swollen. I felt cool. Amazing. And as Boris would say, it is the power of the mind. Sure, those feelings only lasted a few minutes. It took years to master the healing of emotional, physical, and spiritual pain. But what I discovered is the pursuit of happiness is often misunderstood. As human beings, we look for pleasure through the body. A kiss, the adrenaline rush of snowboarding, a mouth-watering chocolate, a vodka, a cigar. But they're all fleeting. Or we find happiness by falling in love, being successful at work, painting. Each of these pleasures is dependent upon something external. If this is how we approach happiness, we will be forever yearning. Something deeper is available to us. A happiness that is self-generating, an endless current from within. So how do we get there? It starts with our concept of happiness. How many of us grew up with the idea, one day I will be happy. Any sadness and disappointment will be a thing of the past. But pain will always be a part of our lives. When a loved one dies, fear that we won't make it in the world, when we feel rejected. And then there is the longing to be loved. The truth is, we cannot acquire a deep sense of peace and lasting happiness unless we're willing to address our suffering. The German poet Goethe wrote about pain in an extraordinary way. He used an expression that describes the experience of pure, exuberant joy and the deepest emotional devastation, coexisting within one person at the same time. Himmelhoch jauchzen, zum Tode betrübt. Himmelhoch jauchzen is heaven, ecstasy. Zum Tode betrübt, deadly anguish. The poet acknowledges that happiness is possible in the midst of suffering, that pain and joy exist side by side. Embracing this idea is the foundation for building happiness. That's the first secret. None of us want to feel pain. It's natural to push it away, even deny its existence. But there are moments in our lives where we're forced to confront it. In the burn unit, hospital workers scrubbed my body with wire brushes to get the dirt, gravel, and glass out that was embedded in my flesh. My doctors worried about seizures, brain damage, and kidney failure. My fever was so high. My mother counted more than 300 staples in my back alone. The agony was inescapable. I remember thinking, I just want a 2-minute break, just 2 minutes. Sometimes in life, there is no break, no quick fix. You dig deep and survive it. There is tragedy. And then there are everyday challenges of being human. The helplessness of witnessing suffering in the world. The war that's created inside ourselves by our own self-criticism. When we experience fear and loneliness. What's most important to remember is the places inside of us that are in pain are the most in need of our love. Si pudiera, acunaría tiernamente tu corazón en mis manos y lo besaría hasta quitarle todo su dolor. Instead of resisting our pain, we need to pour our compassion and kindness into it. When we stop judging our suffering or our faults, our minds become quieter. We create space for happiness. It takes courage to look at our pain. In order to be truly happy, we must be very brave. 2 months after I got home from the hospital, I looked down at myself for the first time and let myself look. My wounds were bulging and growing into large lava-like shapes. I didn't recognize myself. I didn't look human. Going out into the world was excruciating. One woman said, "What did you do? You must have done something really bad for God to make that happen to you." Most shocking of all was in a hospital waiting room when a nurse shouted, How dare you? You have no right to go out in public. You're freaking all these people out. And then she aggressively escorted me out. There were judgments from every socioeconomic level. I was desperate to understand why this was happening. So I decided to start studying people. What I found is that people have a cellular response to seeing something that frightens them. It's like a knee-jerk reaction of fear and survival. It's as if they were thinking, if this could happen to her, could it happen to me? Their fear shuts them down. So I asked myself, what if I could have compassion for them? Can I forgive someone for banning me from a public place? Can I love when no one is coming to say they're sorry? I had to revisit this for years. I was in agony holding on to my hurt feelings. But finally, I let go. I did it for myself, and I did it for them. I wanted to feel peaceful. And what I found is that love is the answer. Always. I learned something beautiful about love from the martial art Aikido. Traditional Aikido teaches that when attacked, you do not attack back. Instead, you redirect the force from your opponent to neutralize the charge. The intention is to create peace and protect everyone from injury, including the attacker. Sometimes it feels impossible to generate love like this when we feel wronged. Every time I'm challenged, I repeat these words. I will forever be ready to be kind. I want to be a place of nourishment. Even if I'm in pain, I'm determined to forgive. Even if I feel betrayed, I will love. We have to be warriors for love. My friends, that's the second secret for happiness. Even after years passed, of course, I still had days where I was depressed, heartbroken. I looked down at myself and I thought, half my body is covered in reptilian-like skin. Will I ever feel okay? I didn't want to wait to experience joy for my emotional and physical wounds to heal. So I used to ask myself, what if I could be happy anyway? Now what would that look like? And then I would imagine myself smiling and laughing. The truth is, we can learn to feel good even when we're struggling. How? By intentionally building joy alongside the pain. Himmelhoch jauchzen zum Tode betrübt. Early in my recovery, my scars were so severely contracted, I couldn't move this arm more than 3 inches from my hip. I didn't want to live like that. Every day, 2 physical therapists had to physically tear the skin open under my arm. It would bleed every time, but I didn't care. I wanted my arm back. We made progress every day, 1/4 of an inch at a time. And today, I have my arm back 100%. My comrades, you must never give up. Chutzpah, feistiness, cojones. That's the third secret. Being gentle and loving by itself was not enough to save me when I was knocked down again and again. What saved me was guts. I found out you can be tender-hearted and fierce. It's the synergy of these two qualities, love and guts, that creates total aliveness. Even when we have doubts, it's worth believing in the possibility for happiness. As a little girl, I was raised to believe that good could prevail no matter what. My parents said, Allison, even in the most tragic of circumstances, good can be found. Fortunately, I took this to heart. It was all tested at age 17 when I read a newspaper headline, "Fire consumes 2-year-old baby playing in a closet." The story went on to say the little boy was alone playing with a Bic lighter. Within seconds, he was consumed by fire. Doctors said his burns are so extensive, we don't know if he will survive. For years, I carried the story and never forgot the little boy. I wanted to trust he could be okay, but my deeply held belief had been badly shaken. I thought, my parents must be wrong. There's no good that can come from this. Who would have predicted that in 1998, I too would be badly burned? But as you can see, my story has a happy ending. I became inspired and created a camp for teenagers, the Roger Pepper Adventure Camps, named after the man who pulled me out of my burning car. It's for teenage burn survivors. Every year we take these kids skiing, snowboarding, ice climbing, dog sledding, rock climbing. It's incredible. I wish you could meet one extraordinary boy from the camps named CJ. You would see that he's burned head to toe. He has no fingers, just one knuckle, and a very charismatic smile. Year after year, he was the guy who would throw a party for everyone. He'd bring the music, he'd get the snacks. He had such a quiet assuredness that you quickly forgot he was burned. His love just burst out of his body. One day I was on the phone with CJ. I said, CJ, we've been friends for years. I never asked you how you were burned. In his gentle voice, he said, did you ever hear about the baby with the Bic lighter? Life is miraculous. The future of happiness is born in our courage to see all that is good and beautiful and all that is unfair and painful, and still choosing to love anyway. My comrades, until next time, to love and the guts. Thank you. Oh.